Few things are for sure in this life, but this is. If we live for any substantial amount of time, we will encounter grief due to the loss of a loved one. Not something any of us ever want, and we all handle it differently. This podcast is to feature those who have done purposeful and meaningful things through their grief. These people featured on here are normal folks, just like you and me, who were thrust into a place they never wanted to be in their lives. A painful place. As they move through their pain, they realize that something worthwhile, something for the greater good could come out of the unthinkable. I'm sure that none of them would ever consider themselves to be a hero, but when I searched the definition of the word hero, I found this: a person who is admired or idolized for courage, outstanding achievements, or noble qualities. And that fit. And so it's my privilege to bring you the remarkable stories of these heroes in grief. Hi, everyone. This is Tom, your host for the Heroes in Grief podcast, and the response has been incredible so far, and I want to thank you for that. It's getting out to people, and they're letting us know that it's helping them, and that is what it's all about. I want to make you aware of a way that you can support this podcast without having to spend 1 cent, and that is through affiliate marketing. I've set up affiliate marketing for online shopping. If you do online shopping, then I have links to all the major retailers, most of them anyways, and I can provide them for you so that when you buy online through those links, you'll help support the podcast through the percentages that we get. It doesn't cost you anything more. You just shop like you regularly would on the sites that you love. It's very easy. All you have to do is shop. And that's it. Just let me know the links to the places that you want to shop at, and I will provide the affiliate links so that you can do it. If you want more information on this, you can go to heroesandgrief.com. It takes you to the Linktree page where a video explains it in a little more detail. But you can always email me at tom@heroesandgrief.com, and I can answer questions for you. But you can support the podcast that way, and it's very easy, very simple, and it doesn't cost you a cent. Isn't that great? Thank you. Now here's today's episode. Greetings out there, Heroes in Grief watchers and listeners. And yeah, if you're watching on YouTube, and you can listen on any audio outlet too. So for podcasts, little different format today. I'm not having a guest right with me in the podcast, but I will have a guest coming on. I'll explain that in just a second. See, every week I just kind of cruise, and I'm like, well, if someone's there for the podcast to go on, I have them. Sometimes I batch. I've got a couple batch record. I have a couple people at a time, and so I have the next week I'll set up and that type of thing. This week I didn't have anybody, and I hit Saturday, and I'm like, well, I don't know if I'm going to get one out or not, or if I'm going to do it myself. I woke up this morning, and I put on Facebook, and I usually see a lot of these videos come by and everything that people do and all that. I don't usually watch them, but I happened to click one from a friend of mine, LeAnn Hull is her name. And I clicked on her video and I watched it, and I was like, oh my gosh, that is exactly the type of thinking that I have for people in grief and where they're at and everything else. So it was awesome, because that's the way the universe works. You know, when you're in alignment with what you're supposed to be doing and everything, things are provided for you. And that's exactly what happened today. LeAnn lives in Phoenix, Arizona, and so I am 3 hours ahead of her. This was the morning of Saturday, and I usually put the podcast out the next day. I texted her and I said, LeAnn, I love your video. I said, could I post that on my podcast, or could you come on today? She couldn't come on today, so she agreed to allow me to put the video on there, which is fantastic. And we'll get to that in just a second. I do want to tell people right off the beginning too that first of all, I want to talk about support of the podcast. And I don't talk about money at all, really. You can support the podcast anytime you want. There's a link in the show notes, or I can send it to you if you want. All right. So the podcast itself, the logistics of doing the podcast, the software I have, and those type of things, I've received donations that cover that. So I'm okay with that right now for the year anyways. You can always use support. But the other support that I thought about this week, that if people contribute to the podcast, and the reason it came up is because I received an email this week from a woman who lost her father, and she was seeking out resources. Now, she has children, so they lost their grandfather. she's struggling in her own grief walk. So it's hard to provide for the children and help them and all of this. So she's looking for resources, and I'm a resource person. I love it. I'm part of the Get Griefy Collective, which is rock stars in the grief world. And I have a ton of other connections that way too, outside of that. Makes it easy on me because I don't have to do all the work. These people are doing amazing work out there. That's what this podcast is all about. And so I just provide the resources. I posted out for this woman today on the collective, and I immediately had a slew of people to send her to, which I did. So that's the way the resource situation works. If you need something, reach out, please. And then that's the biggest thing. That's part of what this message that I'm going to show you is about, is that first of all, you need to take the steps. All right. You have to do it. It's like any other work in your life. It's up to you. You have to take those steps and do them. And if you run into a wall somewhere or a hurdle, then change course. All right. That means find a different resource or find something else to help you. Don't stop. All right. Too many people say, oh, that didn't work for me, and that's it. Forget it. Don't do that. All right. So anyways, this person's seeking resources, and I provided them for her, and I have more to give her if those don't even work. And I told her that in the email. But if you provide support for the podcast, this is where it's going to go. All right. Because I'm getting by financially in my regular life. All right. So I'm not going to use the money for me. The money is going to go to advertising the podcast. I don't pay for advertisement right now for the podcast, and it's doing well. It's gaining some momentum. It's not as big as huge podcasts, of course. But if I advertise, it's going to get out there to more people. And you can do this effectively through social media. I know how to do this. I ran my own social media marketing business, so I know how to get it out there to the people in need. So if you provide for the podcast, if you support the podcast, the money's going to go to that 100%. All right. I promise that. I'm not going to use it for myself and my own needs. It's just not going to go. So that's all I'm going to say about that. That's the way it's going to go. Also, I want to tell you early on in the podcast, because I say it at the end, but all the show notes have information on the podcast that you see. So it has all the links and everything, and LeAnn's links will be in there, her book link, she does coaching, she does other things. I'm going to provide all those links for you. She has a foundation for her son. Her son passed by suicide, and that's where we first got connected. And this is back in actually November of the year Jeff passed, 2023. So 9 months after Jeff passed, I connected with LeAnn because I saw her on a YouTube video that was on the Helping Parents Heal page. We talk about Helping Parents Heal all the time. I'm part of that organization. I absolutely love it. It is uplifting. It is helpful. That is for parents who lost children. All right. So in saying that, though, if you go to their website, if you've had any kind of loss, you will find resources on there that can help you too. There is there's a page of books. Hundreds of books are on there to help you in your grief. If you just watch their videos on their YouTube page, they're going to help you. Even though they're talking about losing children, they talk about grief in general and how to help you with those things. There's tons of other resources available on that site for you. So even if you didn't lose a child, you still can gain from the helpingparentsheal.org website. All right. Let's see what else. Okay. Yeah. So LeAnn, I saw this YouTube video of her talking about losing her son, Andy, through suicide, and her course through that. She had written her book by this time. And so I'm going to give you a quote that this is what struck me, and why I loved her message so much today too, is because it is in alignment with so many things that I've been passionate about in telling people how to get through their grief, or how to start working through their grief. And I love her approach because I'm very matter of fact too. I sometimes struggle with people. I have a lot of empathy, a ton of empathy now through losing Jeff, and it's increased in me, but I'm still me. And my side, my humanness struggles sometimes with people who just don't use their common sense or do the things that they need to do. So, LeAnn tends to have that too. In fact, she says in this video about her tough love approach, and I just, I resonate with that. So anyways, but here's the email that I sent her. This is messages through Instagram, actually, when I first connected with her after seeing that video. I said, "Hi, LeAnn. Thank you for accepting me. I just listened to your talk from 3 years ago on the Helping Parents Heal YouTube page. Loved it. Thank you. You had this quote at the end. You truly can bloom after what's happened to you. You can be the most beautiful blossom. It can be a gift that you can give to the world. You can be that sweet smelling rose that's been born out of shit. You can offer up something and show others your strength, your resiliency, your beauty in the midst of trauma and tragedy. It's all up to you. Bloom where you are planted." That is fantastic. I love the approach, and you'll love this too. And right after this short message, then you can listen to LeAnn. Hello, friends. I just wanted to take a brief break here in the podcast to make you aware of a very exciting partnership that Heroes in Grief has just formed, and that is with Get Griefy Magazine. I'm going to let their founder and editor-in-chief, Kara Sanchez, tell you all about it.
Hey, Heroes in Grief listeners. Life after loss isn't easy, but it can be colorful and full of possibilities. Meet Get Griefy Magazine, a vibrant resource filled with inspiring stories of life after loss, expert advice, and voices from everyday grievers and thought leaders. Together, they're here to help guide you toward the side of life that's left to be lived fully and authentically. Dive into Get Griefy for free on issue or snag a print copy on Amazon. Connect with us on Instagram at Get Griefy Magazine or visit getgriefymagazine.com to explore, join our thriving small business collective, or discover advertising opportunities. Let's embrace life after loss, boldly and together.
And now back to our episode.
So I wanted to talk to you a little bit today about grief and support groups. So you all know that, my journey has been an evolution through grief, not in grief. So that's kind of what I want to talk about, and helping you to use some discernment and to use some caution. So for whatever you're going through, whether it's divorce, loss of a loved one, maybe the loss of a job, alcoholism, and you are looking to find someone to help you in that process through or in and through that journey, I just want to encourage you to be discerning. So let me just take you back really quick to right after Andy passed. So that's been 12 years. And as you all know, Andy died by suicide. And so that was my first, and that was honestly, that was my first inclination, was to join a survivors of suicide group. And that was recommended by many people within the grief community, was to find a like-minded support system. And that made sense. I mean, certainly it wasn't anything I'd ever gone through or experienced, and I didn't have any knowledge in that area. So that was the first group that I went to. Gosh, it is kind of blurry, but probably within that first month after Andy passed. And my first meeting at that group, I left at the break, because even as raw and unknowledgeable and fragile I was at that point in time, I could look around the room and listen to people and look to see who was leading the group. And so within that group, there were a large amount, a majority probably, of the people that had been there quite a while, some as long as 10 to 15 years. And as it came to each of us and we had our opportunity to share our experience and share where we're at, I recognized that those people that had been there that long still sounded like I sounded just a month into my journey. And it's one thing to sit there and talk about how you feel, but if there is no support in the sense of, or guidance, I should say, as to how you move forward through this experience, then I would encourage you that you probably should find a new group. And I knew that right away. if I'm looking at the people that are in this group and they're still talking like I'm talking, just a newly grieving person, then I better find a new group. Someone that can help mentor me, support me in that experience, of course, support me in that new grief. So you're going to find people who are newly grieving within a group, but you also need to find people who have moved through it and can encourage you and support you out of it. If you are still in a support group, 10 to 15 years after whatever you've experienced, and you are not in there as a mentor or a leader, I would encourage you maybe to find another group that can help lead you through your own grief. I think what really encouraged me to want to talk on this subject was, I didn't lead a support group, for probably the first 5 years after Andy passed. Now, mind you, I would meet with other parents who'd lost children, because even at those early stages, I could recognize that I was further along at 2 years than I was at 2 months. And I felt like I could be encouraging to a new parent. Had I moved through my grief process? No. I was still pretty deeply entrenched in it. I would say not at 5 years, of course, but in the first 3 years. And then I kind of felt the clouds part at year 3. And I really felt like I had a message that I could encourage other people. I still had a lot of work to do, but there was enough of a message that I could share my own grief struggles with, and it's kind of the Paul Harvey moment. Here's the story, and the rest of the story is, these are the things that I've been doing. These are the people that I've been listening to, the books that I've read. So I had some tools that I could offer some people to help them in their grief process. So if you're sitting in a grief group or a support group of anything like I talked about, and they don't have tools for you, or mentors who are successfully through the grief journey or the alcohol journey or the divorce journey or whatever that looks like, unless you want to stay there and stay in that place, and people object to me using the word stuck, but I'm going to use the word stuck, then that's where you're going to stay. If you don't have messaging and support people that are encouraging you forward, even in those early days when I did not think it was possible that I would ever move past the pain that I was feeling. I would tell you, I can look back at my Facebook posts and I can see, I would say things like, hey, I don't have a broken bone. My kid died. I'm never going to heal from this. But that's not true, because I'm evidence that that is not true. The difference was, even though those were things that I was saying and feeling and believing, I surrounded myself and I put myself in an environment where I could hear other messages. So that one time that I went to the survivors of suicide and never went back, I recognized, I don't have the tools necessary to help me move forward. And the most important thing was, even though I didn't believe that it was possible, I still wanted it. I knew that I couldn't stay where I was at, and I wanted a whole life. And man, I did not want people to think of my son in terms of me being so devastated and destroyed and distraught. Because if you're looking at me and I'm talking about Andy, I want you to see the light in my eyes, not the sadness. Of course I miss him. Of course I wish that hadn't happened, but you can't undo that. That's something that happened. You can't change it. And so all you can do is manage how you respond to it. And that is what I did. So I did go to another group right away. Probably, like I said, it's kind of blurry those first few months, but it was within the first 4 months after Andy passed. Someone had recommended another group. And within that group, there were other parents who were further along than I was. They were 3, 4, 5 years, and they had light in their eyes. They laughed at the meeting. They had joy. And even while I didn't like that, and that was very disconcerting for me, it bothered me, I'll be honest. And after every meeting, I said, I'm never going back, because these people are too happy. And yet I recognized that I wanted what they had. I didn't like it. It was uncomfortable. And so how did they get there? And the difference within that group, not only were there parents of a varying range of processes, they were also bringing in speakers and tools. That was the key. They brought in a variety of different people that would offer, whether it was meditation, Reiki, hiking. We went on hikes, books. They brought in authors, speakers, podcasters. All kinds of resources were available to us every month. And now that group's helping parents heal. That group continues. You could pretty much almost log on every night and join some sort of an event that they're having worldwide. So there are people that are Spanish speaking, people in other countries. They have a variety of messaging so that someone that's new could potentially identify and get hope to someone that's, for me, it's not the right place for me to be anymore, because my messaging has changed and I no longer serve that brand new baby grieving person, because I'm so far from that it's hard for people, some of the new people, to identify with where I'm at. And people would also tell you that I'm kind of a tough love kind of person, in the sense that these are the things. Do you want to change? Do you want to heal? That's the key. Tell me right there. Do you want to? Even though you don't believe you can, do you want to? If you want to, then here are some of the steps. Here are some of the tools. And I'll work with you on that. If you don't do the work, then, I'm going to say, I love you and good luck and bye-bye. Because I realize that my voice is not going to help you in your process. And it's going to be progressively aggravating for probably both of us, not just me, but for you. So I've seen some people that are doing some grief support groups, and that's what spurred this conversation on, because clearly they should not be doing it, because they are right in the thick of their grief still. Now, could they run a group where they're bringing in people to encourage and to educate and to talk to you and offer some tools? If they were doing that, then that would be fine. But look around at the groups or the people before you jump into any group, whether it's, like I said, an alcoholic group, a divorce support group, or whatever support that is. Number one, are there people in there who have successfully maneuvered through their challenges? Can you see it? Is there evidence? If the evidence is not there, unless you just want to sit in a group and suck your thumb and be sorry for yourself for the rest of your life, maybe that's the group for you. But if you want something different, is the evidence there? Are there mentors to support you through your process that have experienced, not just a counselor necessarily who's never gone through what you've gone through, because I would have had a very hard time identifying with someone like that. That could be an additional tool, a counselor, a therapist. But for me, that would have never been enough, because I wanted to hear from someone who had experienced the loss of a child and the loss of a child by suicide. So I looked for that. And then, are there resources? Are there other voices beside the one voice of that support or grief or whatever leader there is in there? Are they providing you with alternative information and different processes? Because we won't all utilize, not everything is going to work for everyone. That's why I try to talk to you about putting tools in your toolbox. And I've had people ask me, well, what's in the toolbox, LeAnn? What should I put in it? Well, that's up to you, because you have to determine what tools are effective for you. Something like music or hiking that's super effective for me, that might not work for you. So you have to do some seeking and exploration in order to find the things that will help you be successful in moving through your journey. I can't encourage you enough to begin with your speech. Here are the tools that I think are effective. Find a group that can support you in your endeavor. Read some books. Don't read books on whatever you're going through, whether it's alcoholism or grief or suicide. Read books on people who have survived traumas and tragedies. And maybe they have experienced alcoholism or suicide, but have they been successful maneuvering through it? So read books that encourage you, give you hope and empowerment. Listen to music that does the same thing. Nature is always very, very helpful for me when I'm feeling stuck in whatever I'm in the moment, whatever emotion I'm experiencing. Then the first thing I'm going to do is usually get out of my house, because I know how successful just a drive is for me. If I walk out that front door and I get in my truck and I'm driving, that makes me feel, I think, like I have some control back over my situation. And that allows some healing process for me, in the sense that I can be in a different emotional place so that I can process whatever pain I'm experiencing. So just that getting in the truck will allow a change of my brain chemistry, my whole process. It doesn't fix anything, but it puts me in a different state of mind so that I can address the issue better. Begin with your language. And if you are posting on social media that this will never change, that I will never get over this, that I will always be grieving, that I will always be sad, then I guarantee you 100% you are correct. You will never get over this. You will never stop being sad. You will never be successful in your process to move through. Grief is not, I don't care what anybody says. I don't care what you're reading. I don't care what you've been told. Because it is not guaranteed to last the rest of your life. I am living proof of that. So if I'm just the 1%, then that's not an accurate statement. And it doesn't mean that I don't get sad. It doesn't mean that I don't get triggered. It doesn't mean that I don't have setbacks. That's different than grieving, which is a season. Grief is a season. It's not a lifetime sentence. And it begins with changing what you're writing on your keyboard and what you're speaking, even if you don't believe it. It's just being willing to say something as simple as, wow, that's a beautiful sunset. Because that's a positive affirmation. That's allowing you to begin to see something that's beautiful and positive, rather than reaffirming the experience that you've gone through. You don't have to deny the experience you've gone through, but you've heard me talk about balance. Balance, people. Offer some positivity. It doesn't mean that you can't say, hey, I'm really having a bad day. You've all heard me say that. But if all your media posts and all the things that are coming out of your mouth are the same thing, then there's no evolution possible there. There's no growth possible there. And there is healing and growth possible if you are willing to do the work. But it takes work and it's uncomfortable. So those are the things that I would tell you, is use your discernment about who's leading the groups that you are in, and what stage in their process are they at? Are they equipped to help you, or are they only equipped to support you in your misery? And oftentimes we want that. We want to be validated in our misery because we want people to know how hard this is for us, how difficult. But that's different. You can still articulate that. You can still feel it, and find the people that will support you, or the sources that will support you in healing and moving through that. So I wish you a really great day today as I wear my winter clothes, and hope you have a marvelous weekend, and maybe you begin to practice some of those things. Maybe I'm going to look forward to some of you who always post the same things about how sad you are. Maybe try something different and post something about that you, man, you had a great coffee with a friend. You had a really good time visiting with a friend. You don't have to be over the top and say you're joyful and happy, but post and talk about something that's positive, and then you can build on this. Oh, Christine wants to know, after I enter my vehicle, what kind of language do you use? I don't know, maybe because she's heard me cuss sometimes. You know, of course, my language is not always successful, but in that when I do get in my truck, it allows me, I feel like I can take a breath when I'm feeling so constricted and in so much pain. So when I get in my truck and I can begin to do some of the affirmations, so I'm going to be intentional. So after I've spewed out whatever I'm feeling, whether it's, man, I'm mad, or I'm really pissed off, or I'm really upset, or I just feel like I can't go on. I've said that before. Then I recognize I have to shift my language to some, yes, I'm going to get there, from negativity to positivity. So I'm going to go from my negative release of how I'm feeling to reinforcing with positivity, positive messaging, I'm going to take notice of what's going on around me. I'm going to listen to some music that I have purposefully on some playlists that are designed there. Some of them are called Heavenly. Some of them are called Healing. So I have some playlists that I can put in my truck that 100% guaranteed those songs change the spin that's going on up here. And once that begins, then I can start to practice some positive mantras. I'm okay. My kids are healthy. My kids are happy. I'm healthy. My body's healthy. I'm financially okay. I live in a great, these are just simple affirmations. I love where I live. I live in Phoenix, Arizona. I love it here. The sun is out. I love that. So, those are some of the things. You have to choose what is your positive mantra, but after you've released the negativity, reinforce it with positivity. So I wish you a great day today, everybody, and you matter to me. Truly, truly, you matter to me. See you later.
Wise words in there. Probably want to listen to it again, maybe if you're stuck in your grief. And, I know it's challenging for you, but you do have to take the bull by the horns, so to say, and move forward in your grief, or you're just going to sit there and you're going to be suffering more than you need to. I'm not going to say you're not going to suffer, because you're going to, but you are suffering more than you need to if you don't take the steps you need to take. And so she's got some great words. Like I said, I'll have information on LeAnn available in all the show notes, and the foundation for Andy she has there and that type of thing. Some great things coming up in the podcast, and there's other ones to listen to. If you've heard this one, then of course you can go back and check the other. This will be the 40th episode I've got out there. So there's 39 other episodes of the podcast out there right now. And if you share them along to people, then it's going to get out there more too. If you want to support that, you can do it too. All right. Thanks so much. I know it's a little shorter today, but I didn't have LeAnn on here for us to gab and go off on tangents on, but I will very soon. We're going to connect, and definitely I'll have her on so that we can talk. Don't forget, if you're in the Friends of Facebook, or the Friends of the Heroes in Grief podcast Facebook group, then you can put suggestions or questions in there or that type of thing, or you can always email me questions. So, and even for the guests, I still have contact with them and things, and I can get them out to them if you have particular questions, or I can put you in contact with them so you can ask them yourself. All right. So don't hesitate ever to reach out. I love the connection with people. You can also always just post right in that Facebook group about things or things that may have struck you that perhaps that'll help somebody else. This is the way it works. It's called the ripple effect, and that's the way it works, to help other people in grief. That's all we want to do. So thanks for listening again, watching today, whatever you did. And, subscribe, post, do all those things that'll help the podcast out. Like I said on the Facebook one time too, or on social media, just liking a post or sharing it or commenting on it, it causes the algorithms of the social media sites to help it get out there more. The more engagement with things, the more things get out there. That's the way social media works. All right. So just a simple like or whatever on the posts helps immensely. And it's definitely working. There's more people subscribed for sure, because I know when I put a podcast out, I see the numbers on that very first day. And that means all those people are being notified that a new podcast is up. So they start listening. And that's how that works. Just to educate about some of the stuff. So I guess we'll see you next week, and check out LeAnn Hull and all of her things available through the links in the show notes, and send her an encouraging message, because she's got great stuff for us to chew on out there. All right. Have a great week, everybody. Love you. I'll catch you later. Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to the Heroes in Grief podcast. If you'd like access to any of the links that we discussed in today's show, you can find them in the show notes. There's also a link there to support the podcast if you care to. And there is an email link for me there. I'd love to hear from you and your ideas about the show, or what you thought about the show. You really can help out this podcast to get to more people if you subscribe, rate, or review it in whichever way your platform provides. Each week, Heroes in Grief is released on Sunday, so look for new episodes there. Thank you again for listening to Heroes in Grief.